Allow me to preface the video with an etymological prologue. Here is an analogy. Poe is to phantasmagorical as Lovecraft is to eldritch. Edgar Allan Poe was an obvious influence on H.P. Lovecraft, and a master of horror himself. Poe had a particular predilection for his now iconic sesquipedalian lexicon. Lovecraft is regarded as popularizing the otherwise rare word of eldritch, which simply means weird, but with a more sinister undertone, as compared to Poe's phantasmagoria, works which straddle the line between dreams and nightmares. In Magic, there's a whole set named after the word, with Eldritch Moon. But there is another race inspired by the word, the Eldrazi in spirit, in addition to the works of Lovecraft. There is no direct parallel between the old gods and the Eldrazi Titans, but the gnarled and warping monsters bear some degree of resemblance. Their ranks inhabited by squirming underlings, easily sacrificed for their mana, devourers consuming and assimilating everything in sight, and even endless ones who sap all available mana upon being summoned. But above the legions of self-similar and convergent evolutions, the Eldrazi Titans reign. These three Titans are some of the largest creatures on any plane in the multiverse. I'm going to be looking at the mechanics and flavor of the creatures today. Each Titan has two incarnations. The first appearance of each is in the Rise of Eldrazi set, which ended the Zendikar block. The Titans then reemerge, each the headline of a later set. I will be going in chronological order. Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. 11 mana, 10/10, legendary Eldrazi with Indestructible. The Indestructible keyword adds a level of protection to the creature, although it can still be sacrificed. When it is put into the graveyard from anywhere, it shuffles itself into the deck, to prevent it from being reanimated cheaply. The other rules text is focused on removing permanents. When the spell is cast, it destroys target permanent. All three Titans have the keyword Annihilator, which forces the opponent to sacrifice permanents when attacking. When Ulamog in specific attacks, it forces your opponent to sacrifice 4 permanents. So, even if it were chump blocked, it still puts your opponent on a short clock. Ulamog is definitely powerful, and forcing your opponent to choose which permanent to sacrifice is very disempowering, but not too horrifying yet. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Kozilek shares with Ulamog the Annihilator 4 ability, and retains the effect to shuffle itself back into the deck. Kozilek is a 10 mana 12/12 destructible creature, so it dies to removal. Instead of being indestructible, it has the Menace keyword, making it more difficult to block. When you cast this spell, you draw 4 cards, which is very strong, but Kozilek still has a huge mana investment and could result in a loss of tempo if it is removed. This might be the weakest of the Titans. Imrakul, the Aeon's Torn. Imrakul has Annihilator 6, which is 50% more Annihilator than Ulamog, which makes sense considering it cost 50% more mana than Ulamog. Imrakul is a 15 mana 15/15 with flying, still has the shuffle effect, and is unable to be countered. This is an improvement over Ulamog, as Ulamog could be countered by a spell as cheap as Essence Scatter. The combination of flying and protection from colored spells is probably on the same level as Indestructible, but the most intimidating text on the card is the Time Walk effect. Taking another turn with a 15/15 flying creature is particularly threatening, as it offers pseudo-haste to Imrakul. If you can legitimately cast the creature spell, you should win the game next turn. Taking an extra turn is even more disempowering than forcing your opponent to choose which permanents to sacrifice. So, I would say that Imrakul is the scariest of the original incarnations, and easily the most intimidating. The second iteration of the Titans reveal their true nature. For instance, Ulamog warps physical properties, previously portrayed by his removal effect. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. This Ulamog expands on the previous removal effect, offering a double exile upon being cast. This is on top of being a 10 mana 10/10 indestructible creature. The second iterations of the Titans lack Annihilator, and instead each have a unique effect. Upon attacking, Ulamog forces your opponent to exile the top 20 cards of their deck, which puts your opponent on a 3-turn clock, at maximum. Incredibly threatening, and perhaps stronger than the original. It is an important feature that the new Titans lack the shuffle effect, so they can be reanimated, although this would remove the on-cast effect. Kozilek, the Great Distortion. Kozilek's name describes how it warps reality. Both Ulamog and Kozilek have an effect on the terrain, as seen in the art for Ruin in Their Wake. Kozilek not only distorts reality, but the very magic which is contained in the lands, bringing out for the first time since Alpha a new basic land type, that being Wastes. The bismuth crystal-inspired Wastes of Kozilek are particularly beautiful. They generate colorless mana, which is required to cast Kozilek. Kozilek is an 8 colorless mana 12/12, retaining its menace ability. The card draw effect has been improved, with a ceiling of drawing 7 cards instead of the guaranteed 4. Instead of Annihilator, Kozilek gets a controlling effect. The ability to negate a spell by discarding a card with the same mana cost is neutral card advantage without costing mana. But do note that the card discarded has to be the exact CMC of the card you wish to counter. Finally, Emrakul warps the flesh. Emrakul, the Promised End. Emrakul is a 13 mana 13/13 because Eldritch Moon is obsessed with the number 13. Emrakul does not stay a 13 mana card though, because it gets a discount for each type of card in the graveyard. Emrakul retains its flying keyword and adds trample for healthy measure. Protection from instants is a slight downgrade from protection from colored spells, but the on-cast effect more than makes up for it. You get to take control of your opponent during their next turn, which is truly a nightmare fulfilled, and I am not talking about just the wall of rulings. Taking control of your opponent might sound similar to taking an extra turn, but it is far worse. You get to make every decision, using kill spells on their own creatures, crashing their creatures into yours for unfavorable trades, using your opponent's lightning bolt to deal 3 damage to themselves. This is terrifying. The loss of autonomy as a moment of madness takes place and wrenches control away from you. If you survive the turn, you are then confronted with the devastation that you unknowingly committed. Personally, I think Emrakul, the Promised End, lives up to its title and is the most flavorful of the Eldrazi Titans, and perhaps the most powerful, as it was banned in Standard. Of course, Aetherworks Marvel is more than partially responsible, since it allowed for you to gain the on-cast effect. The Titans are uncomfortable and powerful, and I personally find them to be the perfect mix of interesting and unnerving. Hopefully there will be a successor or resurgence of the Titans in Zendikar Rising. At the moment of recording, we have only the teaser image, the Hadron, with an X behind it. But the Hadron, which symbolizes the Eldrazi, bears strong resemblance to an artifact in the extended Lovecraft mythos, the shining trapezohedron. This artifact also appears in Yu-Gi-Oh! As support for the Entity series. Next week, we explore the cosmic entities contained in Yu-Gi-Oh!